So what are your first thoughts on the first hours of the vote throughout Chile?
Well, I went to vote quite early. I woke up to my father having taken the car, so I had to wait out. But I got there as the rush hour was starting to peak, and I was very happy to see huge crowds of people. Looks like the turnout is quite massive. I'm very happy to see that it is turning out to be a very large referendum as it had to be.
Indeed. So, can you explain to us and our viewers how do we get to this point in Chile? It's been years of protests, demands. How do you change a constitution in a country?
Well, sadly, when democracy is missing, and here in Chile, it absolutely, it leaves a lot to be desired, to put it diplomatically. Oftentimes, the only way to get much done is to rattle a cage, if you will. A year ago, a little bit over a year ago, on the 18th of October, there was a big demonstration on behalf of high school students who were dodging the metro fees. And this all spiraled out of control into a huge uprising on behalf of the white mass of people. Unfortunately, though, since the return to democracy that Chile has had since the 90s, there has been very little political organization from the popular side, from the masses. So while the demand was very clear, we want a new constitution, we want better pensions for our fathers and mothers, we want a different system, we want more equality in the distribution of wealth. All of these things were very clearly being demanded, but there wasn't much of a tool that could push this forward. However, something very interesting happened in the 11th of November, where in Valparaiso, which is a city very close to the capital, very important port city for Chile, there was the military was stationed until I believe it was midnight, and they actually stayed until 6 in the morning. As we see things over here, that was what we call a sounding of the sabers, a rattling of the sabers. Essentially, it was a message from the military to the Congress, telling them if there is no political exit to this crisis, there will be a military one. And this was after a month of wide-scale protests, not just in the capital, but throughout the whole country, of small business stores being burned, just a very visceral, very large anger that had piled up after decades of so-called democracy that didn't have much democratic result to show to back it up. Throughout that process, we had 30 people dead, and some more than 30 people dead, and over 300 people who lost their vision, some in both eyes, due to the rubber bullets that were being fired. But essentially, out of the rattling of the sabers, what came was what's called an agreement for peace that was decided from most of the opposition parties, the left-wing opposition, that was from the most of the Broad Front, which is one of the two opposing coalitions, going as far left as Boric, who signed him. He actually signed this agreement as himself, not as his party, not as the party that he was representing, but it was from him, and then every single party to the right of him, from him to UDI, which is the party that it is mostly seen as Pinochet's party nowadays in democracy. And what this agreement stipulated was the next 2 years, there would be what we voted for today. There would be some method to reform and change the constitution. That was not exactly. It wasn't very exactly clear how that would be when the agreement was signed. But what we've landed is on this, where we're gonna we are choosing between a mixed convention or a constitutional convention, either 50% Congress or completely elected. And the way I'm seeing things is it's pretty clear that in as far as the first option to vote, which is, do you want a new constitution? Do you approve the new constitution, or do you reject it? Approve is going to win. As I said earlier, there's a huge anger, a huge frustration on behalf of the Chilean people, and the rejection has absolutely no chance of winning. Similarly, with the mixed convention or the constitutional convention, the constitutional one is going to win. There's a lot of anger and frustration with the corruption that's happened in this government, and the so-called political class that has just done nothing but line their pockets for 30 years now. The issue going forward is how can you expel them from institutionality, right? How much can you actually get out of a process that has been completely outlined by them? And that's where most people or a lot of people are calling for what we say is correr el cerco, which is moving the fence somewhat. The idea being a phrase that comes back from the agrarian reform during Salvador Allende's time, where you would push the fence of the landowner a little bit one way or another, essentially taking terrain over from him to yourself. And that's the way people are seeing things here. That while the same old people that ran the country into the ground essentially are still dominating this process, there is still a better chance, somewhat of a possibility to acquire certain things. Perhaps ending the privatization of water. Where in Chile, I believe it is, if not the only one of the very few countries where water is privatized. To change the pension reform, where you have people who are, you have grandmothers and grandparents who are living on $20 a month. That's not, you can't afford anything with $20 a month. Perhaps changing the toll booths, where if you're trying to go anywhere on the highway, not only are you paying for gas, but you're getting raked over the coals by toll fees. Where I have to go over to a city nearby mine, Los Angeles, from Concepcion, and there's a toll booth between here and there that's almost $10. It is absurd. It is extortionate. So that's the way the wind is blowing. It seems. The people with the pulse on the nation, you could say, while they're aware that you can only do so much when the same people control the country. It looks like there's a real democratic possibility to try to get something done, and that's what we're trying to do. However, if something is going to get done, it is completely fundamental that we keep the same pressure. We got this on the streets, and we're going to have to see it through on the streets. We're not going to get anything done if all we do is go vote, elect somebody unaccountable, and then just go home. We're going to have to keep the pressure on the streets. There's going to have to be barricades. There's going to have to be huge demonstrations. And I give my heart goes out to those over in Plaza Dignidad who are fighting the good fight and sending a clear message that this isn't over. Just because the same old people that, as I said, ran my and our country into the ground, just because they signed an agreement where you can do X or Y thing that will improve our lives somewhat. We're not just happy with that. We're going for everything. We're going to push and push until this country is back in the hands of the working class, is back in the hands of the popular masses, and that includes indigenous people and the Polynesian people of Rapa Nui. Chile is not a one nation country. There are other nations, and that's a big demand that has to be raised in the Constitutional Convention, that the white supremacist conception that there's only one Chilean nation, that's gotta go. And I'm sorry, I had to fit that in because I couldn't quite segue into it, but it is an important thing to say.
Yes, indeed. But Fernando, it seems like, as polls say and as you say, the I approve option is expected to win. So now the debate will go towards how this text will be written. If it's already members of the elected Congress or new people that are elected now, how that debate has been carried out both in Parliament, in political parties, on the streets?
No, I think it's quite similar to the other vote, where between approving and rejecting, nobody really took rejecting as a serious political choice. No, you're going to find very few politicians who expect to get reelected pushing for the rejection vote. Similarly, with the Constitutional Convention and the Mixed Convention, no one is really taking the Mixed Convention seriously, because, again, people are frustrated. People are very, very frustrated with the politicians that have carried this out. And they don't trust them. So while it's true that with the system in hand for the Chilean elections, which is borrowed from Belgium, and it's called the Duhan system, it's quite difficult for an independent person to get in. It's at least possible. An independent needs to gather 1,300 notarized signatures, more or less. It depends on the district and the population, but it's somewhere around there. And any independent person, be it a union leader or somebody who organizes a neighborhood or something like that, anyone who has a serious chance of winning the office, or in this case, getting elected to the convention, they're going to have the ability to out of the 4,000 people that might vote for them, get 1,000 of them to go sign a notarized signature for them. So again, I haven't heard anyone really taking the mixed convention option seriously, at least politically. You always have some fool saying one or another thing, but in as far as a politician trying to campaign for the mixed convention, that is political suicide.
Yeah. So another question that I have on the part of the campaigning, we saw different people, of course, on both sides, on the approval and the rejection sides that were protesting before the vote took place. How has that been carried out? Had there been any differences between people that were in Plaza Italia, Plaza de la Dignidad, and people that were in favor of the rejection option?
Well, that's interesting. When only a couple of days ago, I was driving by downtown, and I ran by a protest of the reject side, of the rejection, and it's very interesting. They're very clearly very well funded. A lot of flags, very well produced, and you can tell when someone has a particular economic background, right? Well fed, well dressed. They look healthy. Here in Chile, health is it really is a privilege, one that I'm happy to have. I'm very thankful for that. But many of the people who I work with don't, and that's a very thing to discern from far away. And you can contrast that with the protests and the organizations that have come up for the approved side, which are, they're, as we say down here, they're very popular, and not in the sense that they have a lot of support, but they come from the popular masses. They come from humble people. People on a pickup that you could very clearly tell came from a farm. Hopping in the back, waving the flags. People with megaphones there. It doesn't look like something that's neatly staged. It's really something to behold when you see that.
So if the I approve option were to win today, as most polls say, what will be the next steps? We know that the next election will be on April 2021, so there's still a lot of work to be done inside political parties, inside social movements. What will be, for example, your role in this, or main parties in Chile?
Well, as you can see behind, that is the party that I belong to for this election cycle, Unión Patriótica. I'll be in Los Angeles gathering our final signatures so that we can finish legalization. But as far as strategy goes, there's a big hang up there, because depending on by what margin approved wins by, it is going to change the procedure a lot, or it's going to change how people look at this whole thing. We really, really are hoping that we get to see a landslide. We want to see approved win by 80%. If it wins by 80%, a precedent is set so that the 2/3 vote, because any article for the new constitution needs to be approved with a 2/3 majority. It is pretty big majority. If we can in the referendum right now get a good bit over the 2/3 figure in the outcome, that sets a very good precedent for the elections, and it will also show a huge demand from the Chilean people that they very much want changes. It will draw the line in the sand very clearly. If we don't see that, if we don't see it over the 80%, and we see it closer to the 60%, the 60 to 70%, we would be concerned. But particularly if it's under 67%, that would be disappointing to say the least. If we get over 70%, we'd be happy. If we get over 80%, we'll be ecstatic, and that's what we're looking for. We want to see that 80%, and if God wills it, we'll see it.
Indeed. And how about the voting process and the counting process still? Has there been any rejection towards the way the counting goes? I know a lot of elections, at least in Latin America, get to have that same, rejection towards who counts it, how's the process, there are no election observations and everything. How has that been playing out in Chile?
Luckily, after the dictatorship ended, one of the big efforts that the new political groups that came forward, they very much wanted things to look transparent. They wanted them to look democratic. Now, whether they are or they're not is another thing. But in as far as the voting count goes, Chile is pretty reliable. You only see some weird things here and there. I remember for the last presidential election, there was a weird character who was trying to walk away with a box of votes, and then when they asked him, "What are you doing?" they said, "I gotta stop taking drugs," and just ran away. But that's a small instance. It's just one box. You don't see what I remember seeing in 2017 when the Honduran election was finalizing. Just people grabbing votes and shoving them in a trash can. Just a very clear election fraud happening there. Here in Chile, the things are more transparent, as you could say, in as far as the actual voting count goes. If we talk about how candidates get to be put on the ballot, that's another question entirely. But in this situation with a referendum, I'm sitting pretty decently comfortable that it shouldn't be too much of a murky subject.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Fernando, for your time and for explaining to us all the context that we need to understand for this very important vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. It's a true honor to be on one of the very few media services, especially coming from Latin America, that is truthful and honest. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.